Appearance on Dion's Daily Dose does not imply endorsement from or by any candidate or guest. The views, thoughts, and opinions expressed by Dion Bergeron or Dion's Daily Dose are his own and do not represent the views, thoughts, and opinions of any guest. Material and information presented is for general information purposes only. The Dion's Daily Dose name in all forms and abbreviations are the property of its owners, and its use does not imply endorsement of or opposition to any specific organization, product, or service. If you'd like to support the show, please visit our Patreon at patreon.com/Dion's Daily Dose.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another episode of Dion's Daily Dose. So I hope everyone had a good Memorial Day weekend. We've talked already about what Memorial Day actually means and why it's generally not thought of as a happy occasion for veterans and remembrance. But that is past us. We're a week out from the primary. 1 week, right? 7 days. Early voting has started. I actually got a couple of messages, a couple of phone calls, people that were like, okay, so I was thinking, right? Do you want me to vote for you, or do we want to focus on splitting the Democrat ticket, right? And I've heard that theory. I've actually talked to a number of people about the feasibility of such. I think it's important. I've put it out there on social media. I would never tell anyone who to vote for. Even when asking you to vote for me, that's all I'm doing is asking for your vote. I vote because I believe that I would do a great job, right? I believe that I would represent you better. But let's look at the theme involved in potential voting, right? So it's been described to me, it's been said, okay, so if we vote for McDermott, right, and we get McDermott through the primary, then he'll be easier to beat in November. And I don't disagree with that statement. It's completely possible, right? It is possible that Thomas McDermott, I think, would probably be one of, if not the easiest to beat. Not money-wise, because obviously he has big money behind him. But money only accounts for a tiny percentage difference, right? And we all saw what happened in 2016. Hillary Clinton vastly outspent Donald Trump. Look who the president is. Now, there are those that are like, no, I should say there are also those that are like, no, I'm voting against McDermott. I'm going to pick someone else because I want to make sure that McDermott does not get the nomination. I don't want to take any chance at all that he's going to be my candidate. And I understand that as well. I do. I get it. My best advice is when you go into the voting booth, vote for the person that you believe in, whether that's a Democrat, whether that's a Republican. I know many people refuse to vote in the primary because of, professing allegiance to the party. We can't worry about November now, but I will say this. It is my belief, right, that because of the craziness with the pandemic, the vast shift that campaigns have had to make from going and knocking doors and introducing themselves to people, things are different, right? It's a very, very different campaign than it would have been had there been no pandemic. Some people it gave a second life to, right? Some people it allowed them to get up ahead of others. On both sides, I'm not talking about anyone in particular. I'm just saying there have been those that have responded very, very well to the restrictions, to the changes that had to be made as far as social media, as far as getting the message out. There have been those that unfortunately haven't responded at all. They haven't done anything as far as online. There's no presence. There's no outreach. But I think it's going to come down to a limited number of voters that are going to make the determination, that are going to make the difference in this election. I think more than ever before, we're going to see a very small percentage difference across the ticket. I'll be very, very surprised if anyone has an overwhelming victory, right? But it could happen. Anything can happen this year. That's part of the craziness, right? That's part of the uncertainty. And it's one thing I've talked before about how my wife doesn't handle uncertainty well. That's part of what's kind of, irking her. There's no polls, right? There's no people calling you saying, if the election was held today, who would you vote for? Not many of the candidates are conducting things like that. I've chosen to focus my funds in other areas rather than doing things like that because polls don't tell the whole story. And a lot of times the polls are wrong. 2016 is a primary example of it, right? A prime example of it. So I want to share a couple of things with you on the latest in the SignGate drama. First of all, so I mentioned before that in my last video from last night, or perhaps it was last night, during the politicking roundtable, Melissa Borum actually mentioned that a particular candidate had signs put up that had their face darkened. Now, I read into that statement, well, the pictures are out, right? And we've seen that it's not really darkened, it's blue. Okay, it's poor printing job is what happened, in my opinion. That's what it looks like to me. It's just not a very good printing job. As such, one of the claims though is that these signs have only gone up in particular neighborhoods. I don't know. I don't know what's going on with it. What I do know is that a supporter of Thomas McDermott has come out and condemned Frank Mervan and his campaign for the signs, because that's the candidate that was featured was Frank Mervan. And they were very vocal about it. Now, one thing I find interesting is that the person who complained about it is actually also the person who posted an endorsement of sorts, right, of Andre Dawson for McDermott. Now, there's a couple of things that I want to show you as far as that goes. For what it's worth, it's actually a pretty decent video. I watched the video. It's not bad. But these endorsements, right? Now, it doesn't say endorsement. It doesn't say that. But we all know what it's supposed to be, okay? So I'm going to show you. Let's see here. Yeah. All right. So there we go. Let's see if you can see this. So I don't know if you're aware, but there are many people out there, celebrities right now, who are trying to pay their bills too, I guess, who will do cameos, right? And they'll read from a script and they'll say whatever you want them to say. You can pay Andre Dawson apparently $60 to do the same thing. Now, is that what happened? I can't speak for sure. I can't say, yeah, this is what happened. But I will say it was brought to my attention. Logan actually said, hey, you might want to mention this. And so I'm mentioning it. Endorsements are funny, right? In several ways. First of all, a lot of times endorsements can tell you who you should vote for, right? They can tell you from a political perspective, yes, this person is worth voting for. In certain cases, businesses, organizations will put an endorsement behind someone and they'll say, we believe that this would be the best person for our members, because that's what an endorsement does. Yeah, Dave. Yeah. So I thought I'd share that the whole Andre Dawson thing. I'm going to show you one more time. You can pay him. Apparently, there's a whole bunch of them. It's not just Andre Dawson. There's a whole bunch of celebrities that you can pay, and they'll say whatever you want. I've been offered. People have offered, hey, I'll pay the money. Do you want this? And I'm like, no, I'm good. I actually have my list of endorsements coming out soon. I prefer to be endorsed by A, people who actually live in the region, and B, and or people who are just as dedicated to fixing our government as I am. Look, we know that there are many, many, many issues in Washington, D.C. There are many issues on a local and county level. Northwest Indiana is an extension of Chicago crime politics, right? You and me both, Dave. You and me both. He says, I actually couldn't care less what celebrities think. Same here. I will say this. It seems that anymore, politicians are just the voted form of celebrities, right? They're out of touch. They have no idea what it's like to be you and me. They don't know what it's like to have to choose between paying your NIPSCO bill, feeding your kids, paying your rent because there's not enough money coming in, right? You have to choose which one. And we've fostered into that. We've given into that. I'm just as guilty, right? I have complained. I've sat back and I've said, how can these people do this? Why aren't they working for the people? And it's because, I'll tell you a big part of it, right? A big part of it is because the system doesn't want people who are going to fix the system. That it's just that simple, right? The parties aren't going to endorse people who are going to fix things, right? Now, post-primary, that's a different story. They're going to get out there. They're going to endorse whoever the winner of the primary is. But it's always been, look, when I decided to run for this position, I talked to all my local politicians, right? My local Republicans. I said, look, I think we can flip this seat. I'm going to tell you how. And I broke it down for them. I said, I'd like to have your endorsement to do this. And they said, well, we don't endorse anyone until after the primary. And don't bother asking, right? Because you're just going to look desperate. You're going to look weak. Okay. I said, I understand that. Are you sure? They're like, yeah. It's standard policy across the Republican Party that we do not endorse pre-primary. Okay, fair enough. So I'm going to tell you, I didn't seek endorsements. I didn't go to party officials and ask them for their endorsement. I didn't knock on their door. I didn't pick up the phone. I didn't say, hey, will you endorse me? Now, shortly before the Republican debate, one of the members of this debate actually endorsed one of my opponents. Okay, fair enough. Interesting, but all right. Around this time, a couple of the local Republican parties actually endorsed one of my opponents. Now, doesn't matter who it is, I'm not naming names, I'm good for them, right? But I am going to say this. One of the reasons for one of the endorsements was that, well, we had planned to have all of you come and speak, but things changed, right? Things changed. So I asked one of my other Republican opponents, I actually communicated with, they reached out to me after the debate and said, hey, you did a really good job. Blah, 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 blah. We talked about a lot of things. But one of the things that we ended up talking about were the pre-primary endorsements. And both of our campaigns were pretty upset about that. We felt that it was biased and neither of us had been reached out to for a way to communicate with any of the parties after the pandemic locked everything down. As a matter of fact, I was supposed to go speak, but that got canceled uh, because of the rules and regulations, right? I'm also going to tell you that despite how I might feel about these rules and regulations, personally, I've done my best to uphold them. I've done my best to not be a vector. I've done my best to stay home unless I have to go somewhere. Uh, and I talked about this a little bit. I'm just going to touch on it for a moment. It was my intention, right? When all this stuff came about and it was like, oh, we're going to shut everything down. It was my intention to go around roadblocks and go knock doors. But I sat back and I thought about it and I said, let's with talking to all these different people, right? What if I transmit this virus from an asymptomatic carrier to grandma, right? And grandma gets sick and something happens, regardless of how it looks politically, I'd feel horrible, absolutely horrible. So I've done my best to do social distancing. I've done my best to have interviews, remotely. But that aside, I was told don't even bother. So, and I talked to the other campaign, and they said they were told the same thing. Now, it is what it is. We're past that. It was my intention to not even worry about endorsements pre-primary. I've noticed a big focus on the left, though, on endorsements. I'm going to tell you that. Not so much on the right, because there haven't been that many. But on the left, right, with the Democrats, Borum has a whole bunch of endorsements from sitting Congress people. Reardon has some endorsements from a couple of people. Frank Mervan has the USW endorsement. He's got some other endorsements, which we're just going to say this. These and you can tell the politicians versus the people who are just going into the political arena for the first time, especially during these Zoom meetings, because the politicians make sure that they drop those endorsements like hand grenades all along the way, right? They'll be reading a statement and then they'll be like, and remember that I've been endorsed by this, and this. And it's like, okay, we get it. And don't get me wrong, endorsements can help an undecided voter. Absolutely. Right? So a lot of times we don't, especially during this pandemic, we don't know who to vote for. I mean, I do, right? You do, or you wouldn't be watching. But people who haven't heard of us, they have no idea who to watch, who to vote for, because they haven't had a chance to meet us. A lot of times they go to these meet and greets, these the pancake breakfasts, the fish fries, the this, the that. All that stuff got canceled. We didn't have a chance to go to many of them. I went to a few, but then it dried up. So it's a good way for the regular average person who doesn't really get involved in politics. They read, like, for example, your standard union member, right? Who doesn't really look into politics that much, just goes to their meetings sometimes, but mainly just what's the best thing to keep my job, right? Because that's really what it comes down to for them. They don't care what's happening with this or that office or this bill or that bill. They just want to feed their family. They just want to know that their job is secure. When the union sends out their little union mailer, right, and tells them, hey, this is who we like for the job, some of them go, okay, sounds good. Now, it's my personal opinion that that's one reason why Pete Visclosky held this job for so long, is because of his, support by the unions. The unions supported him. And actually, while Pete Visclosky could have done a lot more, he did communicate with the VFW. He did take many of the post commanders and introduce them to like the Joint Chiefs of Staff, stuff like that. So he had the support of many veterans, right? Now, it's my belief that without those, we probably would have flipped this seat long ago. But here we are today. We are 1 week away from setting ourselves up to flip this district. So just a little bit more about endorsements and then we'll move on. It was a big surprise to me when the parties decided to not be neutral until after the primary, because that was what was laid out to us. And in communicating with the other party, right, or excuse me, with the other candidate, they were like, yeah, we're very upset about this, but we get it. We knew the fix was in. And I said, really? They said, yeah, we believe that the party wants a certain person because they'll do what they're told. I said, maybe it's a possibility. I don't know. I have never been quiet about the fact that I'm not interested in just voting party line. I'm interested in voting for what's in the best interests of Northwest Indiana. It is what it is. But let's get to the comments here. Dave says if politicians fix things, they'd work themselves out of a job. And it seems that way sometimes, doesn't it? It really does. It's like they perpetuate the very things that they claim they're fighting. It's very, very frustrating. Chris Wells says he ran 20 years on stopping China steel dumping and never stopped it. Look, you are absolutely correct on that. Absolutely correct. We had a massive problem with China and India dumping steel into our economy that was substandard, that was low priced. The tariffs, which we touched on a little bit during the thank you for that, Chris, for the questions about that, because it's important to the region. It really is. Now, I'm going to tell you, steel represents a huge part of the economy for this region. It is absolutely massive. It really is. And it's just, I had numbers for it, and I don't see them right now, but I'll find them. Here it is. Okay. So like I said, during the debate, right, there are a lot of firms, right, that produce and sell items to the industry plus services. Almost 2 million jobs nationwide are dependent on the American steel industry. $131 billion in wages and benefits paid. $500 billion is the effect on our economy. And China was destroying that. They were destroying the steel industry. They set out to do it. It was absolutely intentional. Because for many years, China actually took a loss on the steel that they were dumping into our country. It was intentional. China is an amazing, incredible culture of people. The people of China are not our enemies, right? The communist regime of China is our enemy. They pretend to be our friend. And for those, I'm going to head it off because somebody's going to say it later on down the road. Well, you got Trump up there saying nice things about China. The man's a diplomat at this point, right? What sense is there in verbally going after China and talking, bad about them when you're trying to get things done, when you're trying to get the economy back under control and geared back up? I get it, right? Would I like to see harsher language on China? It's funny because most people, would say, oh, yeah. But yet when he calls a virus by the origin, they want to censor that. They want to call him names. The whole thing is just, I'm over it, right? Yeah, Dave, great point. Let's not forget India. India also is responsible for dumping substandard product in our economy. Here's what it comes down to, though, right? How do we help the steel industry? Because that's what the focus should be. There's a lot of discussion about, well, it's going to get full automated anyway, so there's nothing that we can do. Now, I disagree with that. First of all, is there going to be a degree of automation? Absolutely, right? Automation is taking over everything. But instead of focusing on, well, it's going to be automated, so there's no point in trying to protect it, I would argue that we need to prepare these people that are going to be affected by automation, right? I would like to see more robust protection in unemployment, especially for those who have lost their jobs due to automation. I'd like to see some sort of program that would enable people to be trained differently. Because look, right now, you lose your job due to unemployment. You go down to the unemployment office, you file. They're like, oh yeah, we'll help you with job training. And helping with job training is what? Go be a CNA. Here, they got this class that you can take, and you can get your CNA, and you can become a medical assistant, or you can do this, or you can do that. We need better, right? Especially, I'm not talking about people who worked at McDonald's and lost their job. Not that there's anything wrong with helping those people, because that's what unemployment's for. I'm talking about people who have a skilled labor, right, position, have been X'd out of their job because of automation, because their position is no longer valid or fillable or whatever. What do we do for them? Because you don't go from making steel to knowing how to do something else just like that. There's a process. And I'm not talking about what was it Joe Biden said, let them code or something to the coal miners, right? Oh, sorry about it, let them learn the code, right? Or farmers or whatever. That's not what I'm saying, right? I'm talking about a realistic program that actually looks at, what can we do for these people? How can we help them? Because that's what it's supposed to be for. That's why we're paying all of this money into it, and why companies are into it. A lot of people don't understand how expensive unemployment insurance is. It is what it is, right? So 1 week to the primary. Now, me personally, I'm going to be voting in person, right? Yeah, Dave, thank you. Dave says the number of people it took to make a ton of steel in 1950 is far different than today, and the number will continue to shrink. You're absolutely right. For every job, and there's estimates out there, right? I had the numbers at one point because I knew I wanted to talk about automation, but I'm not going to give you a bunch of facts and figures. I'm just going to talk to you. The number of jobs lost due to automation are not insignificant. There's a lot of people that are going to lose their jobs over the coming years due to things becoming automated, right? McDonald's is already putting kiosks in. We have Walmart that is putting the automated cashiers in. But there are many other industries that are going to expand because of automation. Software, hardware, repair, coding, all of these industries are going to continue to explode, right, for jobs. But what are we doing? We have a lot of people in this country who come from other countries who are learning at our universities how to code, how to write software for these robots, how to take care of these robots, things, right? That should be the focus of our people. Yeah, Dave, fantastic point. Dave says, we both used to drive a truck. Now self-driving trucks are coming. They're right around the corner now. When I drove, right, They were just talking about it. As a matter of fact, when I drove, we were just getting automatic transmissions. I never had one, but they had a few trucks in the fleet that had automatic transmissions. And it's a weight thing. For those of you wondering why semis didn't have automatic transmissions much sooner, is because it's actually a lot heavier for an automatic transmission versus a manual transmission. But they were just putting automatic transmissions in, and so the conversation started. It was like, how long until we're replaced, right? And I was like, nah, it's going to be many, many years before that happens. You need a driver, right, to find the shipper. To GPS handles that now, right? You need a driver to communicate with the shipper, to communicate with the receiver, to find out what their hours are. It's all automated now. You can do all of that. Google Assistant will handle all that for you. Okay. Well, you need a driver to navigate, right? You need one to plan the route and to drive. Well, computers can do that like that now. And the self-driving cars, how's it any different than a truck? As long as the information it has to process is correct, it's not a big leap, right? So we have a lot of jobs that are going to start getting phased out due to automation. I have ideas on that. I really do. I think that there are things that we can do as a country to be ready for it in many industries, because there are many industries that will definitely be affected. And there are some that are safer than others, right? Proofreader used to be a human job. Now software AI has come so far that it can do it in a nanosecond, right? What used to take a day to read a full book, just in seconds, boom, here you go. And we've been warned about AI. We've been warned by some very, very, very smart people, and we didn't listen. So we already started dabbling in AI, and it's only going to take off from there. Yeah. So we have some people commenting here. Chris says Amazon is already looking at drone delivery. How quick is that going to come to UPS, USPS, FedEx? Yeah. And these are all jobs that are normally done by humans, right? Imagine if the Postal Service suddenly went to drone delivery, especially in rural areas. Imagine how many rural postal workers would lose their jobs. Imagine how many in not super urban areas, but areas like Michigan City, right, would lose their jobs if drone delivery became widespread just like that, right? Jack says airplanes have been able to take off and self-land for 3 decades, right? Autopilot, why are the pilots even up there? Technically, they're not needed, which is where this is where the drones actually came from. It's what they started from. I mean, we're looking at many, many people that are going to lose their jobs due to automation, and we can fight it or we can adapt, because it's going to be difficult to look at people in the eyes and tell them, listen, I don't know if there's anything I can do to save your job. But what I will tell you is I'm willing to help you get a new job. We're going to put the full weight of the United States government into helping to train you, to teach you. And there's more that we can do, right? We can change the tax code, right? Because right now there's subsidies, right, that are directed towards capital instead of labor. We can change that up a bit. We can invest as a country, as an area, in dynamic training opportunities, right, to train people for new jobs that are created because of automation, right? We're not focusing on that. We're focusing on, go to college and become a this or a that. When's the last time you saw a coding or software engineer or robotics, other than the clubs, When's the last time you saw it really being pushed academically? Uh, we can increase unemployment insurance to support those who lose their jobs due to the automation. And we can actually increase wages on technology that develops new skills, right? Focus on that. I'm not going to pretend that I have all the charts and the facts and the figures and that I'm going to be able to solve everything overnight. But what I will promise you is that I absolutely will focus on solving the problem, right? Yeah. So here's an example, right? Jack says, look at the local newspapers. Just this past summer, News Dispatch and Herald Argus fired all carriers. Now they get delivered by mail, right? There's no more paper. Remember Paperboy? Those of you, that throw in a paper, or our regular biker, right? The kids on the bicycle that would deliver the newspapers, those got replaced by people in vehicles. Now those are getting replaced. They're just sending them out in the mail. Chris says those jobs are never coming back. Obama, yeah. Trump's just going to wave a magic wand and bring all these jobs back. Those jobs are never coming back. Guess what? 300, I think it's 300,000, over 300,000, 314,000, something like that, new manufacturing jobs during his first 30 months, I think, that Trump created, the Trump economy created. Tom says, what new jobs? Yeah, look, there are jobs that are going to be created by automation, just like there are jobs that are going to be lost due to automation. But what we need as a country is to have a good plan in place on how we're going to deal with that. At the same time, I am dedicated to protecting our steel industry. Dedicated, because I have family that will absolutely hold me accountable. I have a wife that if I don't protect our steel industry, she will pack my stuff up and divorce me. I might as well just stay in Washington, D.C., right? Yeah, Chris. So yeah, they had the game Paperboy too, right? That in the arcade, you had the little handlebars and you hit the button to throw the paper. And me too. I always smash the windows, and you get the dog that would come out and eat your leg, and the cars that would pull out right in front of you, flip over the handlebars. Some of you know what I'm talking about. Some of you maybe not. The computer / Nintendo port of it was terrible. It was nothing like the arcade game with the little handlebars. It was cool. One of my favorite arcade games though was Afterburner. You guys remember Afterburner? The one that you actually got in, that was the first like moving arcade cabinet I had ever seen. I know I'm like dating myself age wise now, but it's one of those issues that are very, very near and dear to Northwest Indiana, because we see factories all across the world that are getting replaced. The workers are getting replaced by robots, by automation of varying sorts. And we have politicians that couldn't care less. They don't give a damn. Many of them, right? I can tell you that I care specifically about the industries in Northwest Indiana. I want to bring more industries to Northwest Indiana, but I want to bring things that create good quality careers. It's not enough to bring a job here. I want to bring careers here. I want to fix the issues that prevent companies from wanting to relocate here. I want to tackle that. A big issue with the region is corruption. I mean, we know this, right? We know this. We've seen people getting. Speaking of, Chris, I just noticed that I actually had a meet and greet there. There's an old arcade / bar in Griffith. Would make an interesting campaign fundraiser. Yeah, I actually had a meet and greet at Twincade. It was awesome. Awesome place. If you get some time, I recommend it. There's some very old school arcade games there. And it was like, I went in, my ear itches. I went in and I didn't know what to expect. It was recommended to me by someone. They were like, hey, check this out. And I was like, okay, yeah, I gave him a call, went in, and I'm like, holy cow, this is way better than I ever thought. I mean, there are tons of games, right, along each side of the walls, all the way down to the back. Let's see, there's Joust. There's, of course, Pac-Man. I think they got Galaga. There's a bunch, right? We played a bunch while we were there. It was fun. Their food's pretty good too. So Paul just said, heard the food's good too. Yeah, it is. It is. Chris says, just look at Gary, right? Used to be a thriving heartbeat of the region. It powered everything around it. And I don't just mean, with energy. I mean, with finances, with hope. My mother-in-law grew up in Gary. It was amazing. And there was no adaptation, right? Everything started shutting down. We have to adapt. We do. We have to adapt. But I'm going to tell you, I am absolutely committed to adapting with you, to helping you adapt, to helping the region adapt. It can be done. It can absolutely be done. And we can end up with a new epicenter of modern technology that feeds the region, both financially, ethically, all these areas. So I'm gonna share something with you, and I'm gonna tell you, I gave McDermott's campaign a lot for the PAC that's going to be running his campaign ads on TV. So it is what it is. I have to get to it. Those of you out there who may or may not know this, there is a PAC called Disarm the Deep State. Okay, it was started by the founder of 8kun. He was an admin on 8chan. Started 8kun after 8chan got shut down. And he has always been a very vocal supporter of the posts on 8chan/8kun from the mysterious entity known as Q. He has always been dedicated to rooting out the deep state. He started a PAC. It's called Disarm the Deep State. And they had spoken earlier. They had said, hey, they liked me. They put me on their webpage, and that was the last I heard of it. I was like, okay, cool, right? Well, they just released a commercial for me on their YouTube. I don't know if it's going anywhere else. But let me see if I can find their website. Here it is. Well, their YouTube video. I don't know if you guys saw it. Oh, yeah. So did you see the Andre Dawson ad? I talked about that earlier. Chris, I don't know if you were here. Here, I'll show you. Where's it at? There it is. Yeah. So the other part here, let me, whoop. So there's that. And then I don't know how much they paid him, but if they paid him, I can't say that for sure, but I will tell you that it was sent to me that for $60, Andre Dawson will say pretty much whatever you want. So the PAC is called Disarm the Deep State, and it is for getting candidates into office who are against the establishment, right? Who are actually trying to make a difference. And I was very, very honored when they put me on the website. They sent out their tweet that, they had added me to it. And it's it's national, right? It's a big deal. At least for me, it was. So they made me, and they didn't contact me directly because they can't, right? You can't communicate your plans with a PAC. So, but I was sent this by someone who happens to be in the Q community, and they showed me. And so, wait a minute. Hold on. Let me start it over. I'm gonna up the microphone so you can hear it. There you go. Vote for candidate Dion. He's running in Indiana's first congressional district. He stands for integrity and will always keep his word. Vote for Dion, he's in it for the long haul. He'll fight the deep state, gloves and all. He's a former truck driver and prison guard. He's the loyal candidate from your backyard. Vote for congressional candidate Dion. Okay, so this came as a complete shock to me. I didn't know that they were going to be doing any videos. I don't know if they're going to be on TV or anything else. I just thought I'd let you know right after I knew. So it is what it is. Again, but for what it's worth, I didn't go to Denver. Take that for what it is, leave it for what it's not. I will say that anyone who believes that this country needs to be put on a new track, right, can get with what these people are trying to do, because that's really what it's all about for them. We have a group of people who were not elected, who are working against a sitting president. We've seen it. I've shown it. The media has shown it. Did you guys see, just out of curiosity, did you see, I can't remember his name, the little weenie that was on the bald-headed guy? I can't remember his name. And he's like talking about how Trump's going to get his butt kicked come November. I can't remember his name. The funny part is back in December, he was actually just talking about how the Democrat Party was in deep trouble. So I find that very, very interesting. I really do. I don't know if maybe the DNC got to him and convinced him that they weren't in trouble, because we see Joe Biden, who is, have you seen the video of him with the cell phone? Speak it out, right? He's sitting there, right, trying to figure out how to use a cell phone. And this isn't a smartphone. I could almost see it, right, if it was a smartphone, because the guy he's up there in years. He probably doesn't mess with smartphones that much. It's a flip phone. Now, as vice president, I'm pretty darn sure the guy had a phone. I'm fairly certain our government is pretty up there when it comes to technology, right? So how can you go from knowing how to use a phone to not knowing how to use a phone, right? There are some serious issues there, ladies and gentlemen. And if we do not get someone into office that is willing and able to fight against the very, very real coup that's being attempted, yeah, we're going to be right back where we were. We're going to have another 20 plus years of someone going along with what Nancy Pelosi wants, someone going along with what the DNC tells them, and we're going to be no better off, right? So I'll leave you with those thoughts one more thing also about the debate. I actually talked to some people today who because yeah, that's it. Thank you. Chris Wells says James Carville. That's his name. The bald-headed guy kind of looks like a demon a little bit, in my opinion, but not like a powerful demon, like the low-level demons that you have to beat in video games before you're able to get on to the next stage. He looks like one of those, like maybe with the bat wings, right? Just my opinion. Take that for what it is, leave it for what it's not. But I talked to some people tonight who did watch the debate, and they had a different said, because I'll tell you, like after the debate, wife and I, we talked about it, and we're like, wow, Mont really was stronger than I've seen him before, right? I wonder if he got some help with speaking, right? He works at Purdue, of course he did, because the previous occasions that I had seen him speak, he wasn't a very strong public speaker, but he did really well, I thought. Well, I was informed tonight that the hierarchy, I won't give you the top two, but I'll tell you that Mont came in third. I didn't come in second, but they said that actually he did well, right? But he lost him on the Second Amendment. He just completely lost him. He was like, yeah, no. He's already making excuses for why he won't stand up for this legislation or that legislation, or why he's going to allow this to go in and that to go in. And I said, I actually didn't think of that. They're like, he's already prepping it because we'll lose the soccer moms, right? Remember, Karens don't vote Republican in general anyway. I just want to point that out. That's just the way it is. But I see what they said. I went back and I watched that part. And I was like, okay, all right. I see that. The other thing is, because I was impressed by some of the answers that he gave. But they were talking about specifically on that question. I said, I can kind of see that. They were like, you were very well prepared. I said, thank you. We had, oh my goodness, we had notes from one end of the house to the other, just trying to go through everything out of all the potential topics and all that. My wife actually almost had a meltdown trying to get me prepared for it. I've said it before, and I couldn't do half of what I do without her. She is absolutely my rock and helps me an incredible amount. Chris Wells says, I heard the moderator stole the show. I would agree with that, good sir. I think the moderator did a fantastic job and should absolutely be tapped for the next debate. I was really hoping we could get more done between before the primary, but it's too late. We got a week left. I have to get out there and push. That's a good point, Chris. Sarah was worried about how quick Mont jumped to the left on the 2A and abortion, and that's the other thing. Let's talk about abortion for a minute. I'm going to do a show on abortion, right? And what is our solution there? Because we can try to overturn Roe v. Wade, and we can try to make it illegal to kill babies, because that's what I believe abortion is. But is that going to solve the problem? Because the problem is, look, abortion's a problem. It is, absolutely. To me, it is. And the number of lives lost that way is infuriating. It's also heartbreaking. I looked up numbers, right? I did I sent out my little survey for Indiana Right to Life. And I looked up numbers for my little paragraph again. And just since the last time I looked it up, the sheer number difference break my heart. It just absolutely breaks my heart. But I got a thing in my eye. I think it's an eye booger. Um, it's horrible, right? The sheer numbers, the numbers that I used, is absolutely terrible. I think one of the ways that we have to address that, one of the things that we have to do is look at the causes. Why do women have abortions, right? One of the main reasons is poverty. Poverty plays a big factor. Far more women from uh, sub poverty range, right, that make less than the official definition of poverty in this country have abortions versus those who are above the poverty level. Um, so we have to look at that, and we also have to look at what are the options other than that for these people. Uh, yeah. So Sarah says, I almost had a meltdown helping Chris get ready too. So yeah, you understand. Notes everywhere. And for us, it was like almost like flow charts. So okay, here's the big topic, right? It could go this way, it could go this way, it could go this way, right? Because we had so many topics that were given to us, and we had to kind of figure out, okay, so if it goes this way, then there's a potential set of questions that could be asked. If it's this way, there's a potential set of questions. So it was a lot. It was a lot. But so fast. I think he was really quick to jump to the left on a couple of things there. I think that's what you're referring to. Paul says, "Is there really a solution though?" There's not a single solution, right? There's no one thing that we can do that's going to end it, right? But I do have a couple of very interesting articles that I want to share with you. This video is almost an hour long already. I'm going to get to those soon. But I do think that there are things that we can do to greatly reduce the number. Those I can stand up here and I can tell you all day long I'm pro-life. I believe that every life is valuable. And I do. These are all things that, what the heck is that? Um absolutely believe these things, right? That all life is valuable. Sorry, I had an ant. Uh but we have to be willing to do the steps that are necessary, right? To make it to where it's not something that's even considered, right? Uh, yeah, yeah. Education is really important on that. There's a lot of things that there's a lot to it. Uh, and I agree with you, Chris. You want to slow down the number of abortions? Have people watch a video of a 12-week-old fetus being aborted. Uh, yeah, I agree. I absolutely agree. Uh, I've spoken before about the personal connection that I had, and all I honestly, before that point, I didn't even know how it was done. Uh, I figured it was like a shot or a pill or something. I didn't know. I didn't know how they did it. After I found out that my child had been aborted without my consent, without my knowledge, without even knowing it was a possibility of that happening, I actually looked into what that meant, and it was horrifying. It was absolutely horrifying. So uh, I am committed to, yeah, and I agree with that. Paul says because who wants to think about that ever? Uh, so Chris has a quick question. He says, I've been concerned over the House's last stimulus. What's your take on it? Look, the House has put forth a bill that is estimated at $3 trillion. It spreads money around like we all have it, right? Uh, I'm going to say this. There are many, many people. I had to get some work done on my vehicle today because I'm going to be driving around a lot, trying to make it out to all the voting booths, show myself out there. I can't knock doors, but I can try to communicate with voters in the only way I have, which is by driving around Dion 1, right? My truck, for those of you who have seen it. I got some magnets for the side that look like this. Right on the doors, and then in the back, it's got the Second Amendment with my website and my name. I'm not going to be able to drive it around if it's all busted up, but had to get some work done. And I talked to the guy who runs the shop, and I said, "How have you been holding up, right, with the shutdown?" And he said, "It's been terrible. It's been absolutely. We went from doing, 10 oil changes a week to 1. We keep the vehicles running." He's like, "The only reason we're even open is because we have to provide tows, right, for the city if they're needed. So we have to stay open. We're essential. But trying to keep the lights on and trying to pay my employees and trying to do all this stuff, it's been terrible. If we're going to throw up money out there, right, then we need to make sure that it takes care of people like that." And another thing, I'm going to say this, right? The VFW, that's one thing that I talked about before in my video, and I'm going to mention it now. The VFW cannot get stimulus money because they're a charity, right? So they don't qualify for the stimulus money. That's crap. It's absolute crap. Them and many other veterans organizations, if we have companies, if we can give money to the Kennedy Center, we can make sure that our veterans organizations are taken care of. We can make sure that our veterans are taken care of. It infuriates me to no end how California is making sure that illegal immigrants get money, right? But our veterans are sleeping on the street. No. That's Chris asks, did I put in for any of the stimulus money? No, actually, it's funny. So there was this video going around where you could apply for some kind of, I don't know, some $1,000 or something as a small business, right? And I guess a whole bunch of people did. You didn't even have to have any sales. Like, I don't know, it was weird. But the wife's like, "Hey, because we had a website for a little bit where we were trying to sell some stuff, just like shirts and stuff like that." And I'm like, but the virus didn't affect that. And she's like, "Well, yeah, but I'm like, no, absolutely not. No." So the answer is no. I didn't make any applications or anything for the stimulus money, nor would I. I don't think it's right. And like I told her, look, this in and of itself, right, I don't think it's a bad thing, helping small businesses, right, especially like sole proprietors, things like that, the ones that really have been negatively affected by the virus. But we need something to make sure that the right people get it. We need oversight. Paul says the fact we need these nonprofits to help veterans is just horrible in itself. Absolutely. My question is, we know that there are some quality people running for Congress. I'm not about to talk about anybody's integrity, right? Because I think pretty much everybody on the right are good people. That said, there are those that are running that I believe would continue to throw money at the armed forces. More importantly, the military contractors, these big companies that are making money. It's not our vets that are getting the money. It's not our servicemen and women that are getting the trillions of dollars that we put into our military. It's companies like Lockheed, like Boeing, Lockheed Martin, Boeing. Halliburton. These are all the companies that are getting that money to our veterans. It's not going to our people that actually deserve it and need it. That's one thing that I want to change. I want our veterans organizations taken care of. I want our veterans taken care of. I don't care whether the CEO of Boeing can afford a new yacht. Don't. Sorry about your luck. And another thing is these corporations they're too powerful. They have at least as many rights as we do as individuals, as people, as human beings, and that's not right. It's just not right. So, Chris Wells says Planned Parenthood got a lot of those loans. That is infuriating. That is absolutely infuriating. I will tell you that if you do not understand or know the history of Planned Parenthood, you really should look up Margaret Sanger. You should look up the woman who started it all, and you should look up what her priorities were, what her goals were when she started Planned Parenthood. It's very eye-opening. But make sure you check a few different sources, because just like everything else, it's being expunged. It's being cleaned off the internet. Chris says, this Congress is throwing money at this thing like we do at education. Money isn't going to fix this. Education of the problems will fix this. I agree. We need, look, education is an issue all across this country. And just pouring more money into it isn't the way to go. It isn't the solution. We have to start looking at real, obtainable solutions that are able to be enacted. We need to learn what the real problems are. How can we fix those problems? One of the problems that our media don't do their job, right? It doesn't do its job. They don't report on things that would educate us. They report on things that will incite us. Yes, Chris Wells, that was Margaret Sanger's goal. Absolutely, that one word. Absolutely. So, Chris says Planned Parenthood got $80 million of your money, my money, $80 million. Just another example of the waste, fraud, and disgusting things that happen in Washington, D.C. And it is just another example of why I'm running for this office, because I'm sick and tired of it. We have no accountability in this country anymore. These people do whatever they want. We've seen these people, right, on both sides of the aisle, lie to the American people over and over, lie in the halls of Congress, straight face, make up things. I'm over it. We need people in office that are going to, look, I'm going to tell you, hey, look, this is the way it is. I'm sorry. It's not what you want to hear, right? But I respect you enough to be honest with you. I respect you enough to tell you the truth. And then we don't have enough of that. So it is what it is. So thank you very much for joining me tonight on Dion's Daily Dose. I'm going to try to put together a nice informative abortion video, because okay, all right, yeah, we'll run the commercial one more time before we end, and we'll leave it there. I'm going to say this before we go. God bless you, and God bless the USA. Let's see if that's still turned up. Yep. Okay, here we go. Dion is running in Indiana's first congressional district. He stands for integrity and will always keep his word. Vote for Dion, he's in it for the long haul. He'll fight the deep state, gloves and all. He's a former truck driver and prison guard. He's the loyal candidate from your backyard. Vote for congressional candidate Dion.
If you'd like to support the show, please visit our Patreon at patreon.com/Dion's Daily Dose. This has been Dion's Daily Dose, hosted by Dion Bergeron. Executive producers Sean Holgram and Michael Beebe. Copyright 2020. Dion's Daily Dose, all rights reserved.